Alleluia, Alleluia, A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Matthew. Glory to you, Lord. When the Pharisees heard that Jesus had silenced the Sadducees, they came together, and one of them, a lawyer, asked him a question to test him. Teacher, which is the great commandment in the law? And he said to him, You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, and with all your soul, with all your mind. This is the great and first commandment. And the second is like it. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. On these two commandments depend all the law and the prophets. The Gospel of the Lord. Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ. St. Pius X was of a poor family. He was just a simple, loving, effective parish priest. Grassroots. He knew the people and loved them, and knew what was good for their soul. He realized that the locus of encounter between the soul and its Creator was the sacred liturgy, and it was the right of the Christian people to worship and participate. Therefore, he became aware very early on of the importance of making it possible for the people to sing and to be engaged in what was going on. It was a healthy reaction against the people coming in to say their own prayers while the Holy Sacrifice was taking place, as though the prayers of the people did not have to be that of the sacred liturgy at all. It would explain how, in his career as Bishop of Mantua and then as Pope, he pushed that sacred music and sacred liturgy should be just what it should be. It led to the commissioning to the monks of Solesmes of the body of Gregorian chant, the reform thereof, that is, the scientific research into what is the best version that we have in the manuscripts, and the reprinting of it in malleable books. And his hope was that also the people at parish level would be able to sing a minimum of Gregorian chant, which is the chant of the Church. And actually, it's still there, the fruit of this, insofar as one can go to various sanctuaries across the Catholic world and find that certain things are still known and sung in common, the Missa de Angelis, for instance. And also the fact that nearly all communities throughout the world that use Gregorian chant use now what has come from Salem. But he was also aware that the people needed to participate also fully in the sacramental life, available, but not availed of. Already the Sacred Heart had explained through St. Margaret Mary his desire to have people approach him, because there was still in the air the residue of Jansenism, and it was not popular to go often to meet the Lord. And so once a month, those first Fridays come in at that point, but then Pius X, aware that it was not enough, pushed further, and frequent communion was what he wished. But he did lay down that certain conditions should be observed, and he was afraid of too much familiarity and did warn against that. It is important to prepare, if necessary, with sacramental confession, but certainly with interiority and calm, and to give thanks. Why? If not, we're not encountering the one that we receive. We're actually deflecting grace if we don't engage with it. Grace, badly used, withdraws. It is a danger for the Christian soul. It's not either the minimum or the maximum in frequency that we look for, but for the optimum. And it has gone too far in our days. People receive sometimes twice or even 3 times a day, and it's not healthy if it leads to casualness. Indeed, canon law allows for 1 second communion if there is sufficient reason, but does not allow a 3rd or a 4th. And we know from experience that the automatic nature of communion doesn't lead necessarily to an increase in Eucharistic devotion, but to its contrary. But there is one thing to be aware of. He wanted the Lord to be available to his people, but to be engaged with in love. And he saw that children were capable of amounts of love which actually exceeded that of adults. He was influenced by the story of our own Nellie, little Nellie of Holy God. Fascinating story. And when he came across this case, he realized that children were well able to engage with the Eucharistic Lord and understand fully what they were doing. And it is our experience too that quite often communions of little children, well prepared, are far better than those of many an adult. The Lord loves to come into the heart of the little people. In fact, this morning there was a little child at Holy Communion. She was already able to receive, and it is good to see them preparing and also making thanksgiving. The children put many an adult to shame. The Lord loves to come into these pure breasts, and we must not stop them. Suffer the little children to come unto me, and do not impede them. And therefore, he was aware that there was a whole world to be explored in the sacred liturgy. Sacred music, well executed, and participation in 2 spheres, all linked and not in any way contradictory. When he said and used the expression participatio actuosa, he did not mean exactly what it has come to mean in our day. He could have used the expression participatio activa, it exists, but he used that which has become the expression now, as it were, made canonical by the Second Vatican Council, actuosa, because it means more than active. It means actual. It means engaged. It means authentic and true, personal, participating therefore on that level, which is actually not necessarily equidistant with regard to participation in things done and uttered. To some extent they correspond, but not to all. And Benedict XVI pointed out that there was a problem here, because it has come to mean in practice that someone has to do something all the time. It's not that. And actually, with tongue-in-cheek, Benedict XVI described the scenario whereby, whereas if liturgy is well prepared by experts and one can be invited to participate with the heart in beautiful harmony which elevates the soul and moves the emotions and therefore invite the soul to engagement with something superior, angelic, God, the author of beauty, the invitation and insistence that all should all the time sing all that's to be sung means that you might be exposed to somebody right next to you who can't sing, which will have the effect of impeding true participation on the level of the soul, because one is hearing jarring notes, and the people have been deprived thereby of the experience of flight, moved by the emotions. And he points out that it's not an either-or, an out, but an et, a both-and. There is a place for the expertise, for instance in the pauses when the people are quiet, receiving Holy Communion. And by the way, we have lost that too, because in practice, the worst enemy, apparently, is that Holy Communion should be protracted more than a couple of minutes, and therefore do anything rather than have a pause at that point. While there's plenty of time to give the notices, it seems, afterwards, even before the post-communion prayer, when the Lord is actually present in the people's hearts. Whereas actually, when I was growing up, that was still a long process. Holy Communion took about nearly 10 minutes, and there was lots going on of music, of elevated chant, and it was an atmosphere, and people received on their knees and went back on their knees, and it was still, this is after the council, there was plenty of time to absorb the grace. It was a moving time when there was a good choir. Now, what happens? It's as though the worst enemy is silence at Holy Communion. Is that active participation in the sense of actuosa, or is it something else? But there is more. We think that we have grown up, and we look with a smile at all the past generations before us, how immature they were. All this muttering in a corner. Well, it wasn't my experience in student days. I remember in Rome, when not yet a priest, the young priests there who had been ordained in the vacation in Norbertine communities coming to Rome were looking for non-priests to serve them, because quite a few wanted to celebrate still on their own, and they might do so in Latin. And on a daily basis I would serve one of the young ordained. It was the new Mass in Latin, but it was facing the other way at a quiet private altar. And day after day it hit me that there is genuine participation here. Why? It's only Jesus and the angels. The priest brings down the Lord, and when he comes the angels are waiting. And when one is right at the feet of the priest there serving behind him, one feels the choirs of angels fluttering around. That is Participatio Actuosa. I'm not sure whether the clapping of the hands is at least to that extent. One day after serving, I wrote this Latin Mass. Day after day, we mutter quietly, alone and in a corner, with no eye but thine eternal vision, silently beholding this our magic. Yet too nigh is mystery to history's domain, to be too quickly pruned. There is a peace in lingering in an age that did much gain in losing all, in wonder where words cease. I have observed, my Lord, in serving Thee, here where Thou art, unhurried and alone, that there are many things that I can see when looking well into the great unknown. For there is here a something happening that bids me to a fading aeon cling